There was once a boy born into silence. Not the kind of silence that comforts, but the silence that stretches wide, like an empty room where no one listens, like a vast sky without a single bird's song. This boy's name was Ravi, and from the very first breath, the world knew he would not sound like the others. No cries to break the stillness, no laughter to fill the air. Just quiet. But within that quiet was a universe, a world waiting to speak. In a small village tucked between hills and rivers, where the days passed slowly like drifting clouds, Ravi was born. His mother held him close, feeling the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm that sang even if his voice did not. The doctors were puzzled, the villagers whispered, but no one could hear the story he was trying to tell. For Ravi, silence was not a void. It was a beginning, a place where words waited, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to bloom. As Ravi grew, the world around him roared with noise. Children's laughter, teachers' voices, the chatter of markets, all swirling like a storm he could not join. He watched, he listened. Every whisper of the wind, every crackle of dry leaves underfoot, every distant song of a bird, they filled the silence where his voice could not reach. And in that listening, he began to understand things others missed. The hidden rhythms of life, the quiet courage in small moments, the power in simply being present. But silence has its weight. It can feel like an invisible cage. Ravi knew the sting of loneliness, the cold looks, the whispered names, the empty seats beside him in classrooms. Sometimes, he wondered if the world even saw him. But still, he held on, because deep inside, beneath that silence, was a spark, a hope that whispered, "One day, I will speak." One rainy evening, the village market was filled with the hum of conversations and the splash of water. Ravi took shelter near a small shop where a television flickered with a man's powerful speech. The man's voice thundered, fierce and alive. Ravi did not understand every word, but he felt the fire burning behind them. A fire that called to him, that said, "You can find your voice too." That night, in the quiet of his room, he wrote a promise in his worn notebook. "I will speak, even if it takes all my life." A hope that whispered, "One day I will speak." So began the long journey. Night after night, in the shadowed corners of his home, Ravi practiced, whispering to pillows, mouthing words in cracked mirrors, listening, repeating, shaping sound like a fragile sculpture. Every word was a battle, every breath a victory. Sometimes he failed, sometimes frustration and tears spilled, but he did not stop. Because silence had taught him something precious, that patience can roar louder than fear. Years passed, and then one day, the moment arrived. The school auditorium, filled with buzzing voices and bright lights, seemed to grow quiet around a trembling boy. Ravi stepped forward, the microphone towering over him like a giant. His voice was fragile, a soft tremor breaking the stillness. "My name is Ravi," he said, each word a mountain climbed. The room froze, and in that silence, his courage spoke louder than any applause. From that day on, Ravi's voice grew stronger, not just in sound, but in purpose. He became a light for others who felt unseen, teaching them to find their own words, their own strength. Because sometimes, the most powerful voices are those forged in silence and struggle. And every whisper carries the seed of a roar. At 21, Ravi stood on a stage he once only dreamed of. A TEDx stage, bright lights, thousands of eyes watching. His voice was not perfect, but it was real, raw, alive. In silence, he said, "I found my loudest voice." And the world heard, because sometimes it's not the loudest voice, but the bravest that breaks through the noise. Today, Ravi helps others find their voices, not to mimic perfection, but to embrace their truth. His story is a beacon, proof that silence is not absence, but potential, that every broken voice can be rebuilt, word by word, breath by breath, and that the quietest hearts often carry the loudest stories. If you feel unheard, if your voice feels broken, if silence feels like a wall, remember Ravi, you are not alone. Start with a whisper, one word, one breath, and one day, the world will listen.